Alright, Mopar people, welcome back to the channel. I'm just Mopar Joe. I've been promising y'all that I'm going to tear this 408 down. So my goal of this video is kind of show what I think is important to look for and how I'm going to tear it down. The engine ran just fine when I pulled it. Basically it came out of my black truck. I wanted to do a little bit of freshen up stuff on it to go back in my Barracuda. Try to pick up some power that way. It is getting a different cam, different intake, some head work. We'll talk about that whenever it happens. But today's all about the tear down, and I'll just kind of show you the process. So I go ahead and start pulling some stuff apart. I'm going to get the camera set up better where you can kind of see angle by angle. Maybe it'll help somebody out there. If you like my 360 videos, you may like this one. It'll be along the same lines. I'm going to try to slow it on down. We'll take it step by step. Alright, I'm going to go ahead and knock this alternator off, get it out of the way. Alternator brackets. I think these were just like the factory style brackets to my truck. I remember this bolt, I don't know if you can see it or not. You can see the amount of different sealants I've put on it because that sucker would never stop leaking. And then finally one day it did. It took wrapping with thread tape, the PT, FE sealant, whatever, Permatex. Get my bucket, just in case it wants to pee on it. You can see my dipstick. It's probably broken off. I haven't looked. It got a dab of silicone around it at the racetrack one day. Not long after the engine was built. And I threw a hose clamp around it to tie it to this so it wouldn't vibrate as much. I've got a new dipstick, I believe, from my buddy Mr. Tim Doolin. He had the Juan Carlos truck, if you ever saw it. If I can't make a little quicker work of this. Yeah, look at there. Nice. Yeah. So, hindsight's 2020. Probably could have stood a little bit longer bolt, but it definitely didn't leak anymore. Still wet. That's good. I'm going to use the alternator bracket set up off the 360 because I put that race alternator on. It was not broken off. I bet you it has a crack in there somewhere. I've welded these before, but it wasn't doing much. It didn't leak, but RTV to the rescue, huh? I should have mentioned that in the mistake video. Anyway, looks like I'm still full of oil. Maybe get that drained out before I pull the oil pan off. But I'm looking at the top end. I'm going to pop these valve covers off. You'll be surprised in just a second. Voila. Uh-oh. Yeah, I stole the rocker arms off here. These rockers and push rods went on to the 360 that's in my Barracuda. That helped me eliminate the stamped steel rockers since that cam was, I think, like a 531 maybe lift, something like that. Fairly high lift to use stock rockers. So I went ahead and switched these over to it, and that eliminated my issues I was having. Part of that issue. And push rods. These are just the factory ones I drop back in place. There we go. So I can hear the people at home saying, if you wouldn't have used all that RTV, it'd come off there easier. It's not too bad. I went and got this chisel, just stuck right underneath this corner here and pulled up, and it just said, and popped. I went ahead and did the back corner as well. So I can't get up out of here now. There we go. Set this over here. And lift. Lift and separate. One of my first steps. I know the cam's coming out of this. I'm going to keep the cam, keep the lifters, keep them all in order. But like as I pull them and look, I can inspect them as I pull each one out. It looks really nice. That one does. I haven't looked at any of the others yet, but that'll be part of the teardown process. If it ate up a cam lobe, then it probably has sent that metal through the engine one way or another, and that would be bad. All right. So before I start pulling these heads off, notice it's got 10 bolts. It's a small block Mopar. These are ARP bolts, and they've only been used once. So your discretion whether or not you want to keep them, reuse them. I'm probably going to keep them and reuse them. And I just wanted to run through real quick, show you a couple things. This is a paint stick from a big box store. Doesn't matter. I take my paint stick and I can put behind the wheel on the engine stand. I know it's an old ugly engine stand. Doesn't matter. Okay. But putting that behind there, you see, it'll keep the engine from rolling backwards. So as I'm loosening these, going counterclockwise, it doesn't try to roll as much. I've got my socket. This is a new socket, 9/16 socket. I can slip it on here. You see it's still a little bit loose. So I just got a soft cotton cloth, and I can start on the outside. We're going to start outside and work our way in. Set it there and push it down on it. So that's a nice tight fit where the socket goes onto the bolt head. That'll keep that socket from marring or messing up that bolt head. There's my big ratchet. And see what we can do. Sound good. That's it. So that dude's loose. And we go up here, that's fine. You can give it a tap if you need to. There's it. So you take them off like they're torqued, you'll just work from the outside in. Nice tight seal. loosen them up. In this situation, you could, if you wanted to, use an air hammer. On an engine like this that I know is going back together in this configuration or similar to it, I want to feel each time I loosen one of these bolts if it's excessively hard or if it's stuck or if anything happened out of the ordinary, then you can feel it using a ratchet versus just an impact. See? Popping loose. Ooh, see that one? That made a little noise. We'll remember to look at that in just a minute just to be sure there's not something funky going on. Could have been a ratchet. And number 10. Thank you. Bring my drip bucket over here just in case it loses some. Imagine that. So here's a different one I've never done before, but it's here. Notice my cherry picker. I was just using it as a camera stand. I got a piece of chain. There we are. That'll work. Have you ever seen anybody drop a head on their toe before? I actually have, and it was both funny and nasty at the same time. So we can. There it is. Shouldn't fall off. Bet you've never seen that one done before. Camera's in the way. Heads off. So here's that race engine, or the engine that was being raced. Alright, so before I do anything else, I'm going to pop his head gasket off. This is just the old Fel-Pro blue gasket from the kit. It was not, like I said, this was designed to be a street engine, and I just happened to race it. So pulling that gasket off and looking, I like to look for little sections like this, or something that's burnt, or if it had leaked, it would kind of have a trail. Like, see, that one's kind of close, but it's not. There's not a lot you can tell from this, but sometimes it will tell you great things if you had an issue with your engine. See here, this is like starting to burn through a little bit. I mean, it's probably common. This block's never been decked, obviously. I don't think I've ever had a block decked. And I mean, the people online will say, you know, if it's not decked, then whatever. But most of the engines on the road that are rebuilt never get decked, and they run just fine. Something else I wanted to check. I'm gonna wipe that piston top off. I'm gonna get it on top dead center, and we can see how far down in the bore it is. That'll kind of tell us more about compression too. I figured it up before, But like I said, it's been a while. These are pretty dished. See that? They got quite a dish to them because it's a street engine. If this was a flat top in a 408, I think that would put me at about 12 to 1. I have some flat tops, but I don't know if I want to get this engine rebalanced right now. It would probably put me off a whole year of racing or more, just for logistics for me. But I'm gonna wipe that piston top off and we'll see. Alright, so I've got my dial indicator set up here just to find top dead center, and got it zeroed. If I go that way, it's going away from zero. If it goes this way, you can see it hit zero and go backwards. I'm gonna put it right back on right there. It's very close to my mark down here, just a little bit off. That's okay. Doesn't matter at this point. I'll remark that later. But I've got that distance now, so I'm going to pop this off. So there's many different trains of thought for this. I think they even make a special tool. What I have here is just a straight piece of metal that's machined. And I got my set of feeler gauges. So if I lay, you can see that edge is pretty nice and straight. If I lay it across here, there is a difference at the bottom and versus the top, and they have kind of a little bit of dome added here, which is nice. I would call that a quench pad. If I lay that straight across like that, that feeler gauge is 12 thousandths. So, and that's really right there. If you go to the very edge, I can even turn it and try it. That very edge, that dude will not slide at all. Let's see if I can get it right. It won't make it right there. Like, I would guess that's almost 6 thousandths. It opens up here, obviously. And there's several principles of like piston rock. See the difference? I bet I can push down on that side. That dude's almost, man, wish I could do it and hold it. But there's no way there. So if I've got it rocked, there's a 9. I have that pushed down. Find the good part of my straight edge. That 9 won't go. Hopefully you can see that. So it's less than 9 thousandths right there, which is good for that area because I'm running closed chambered heads. Let me show you on the head here. How happy it was. And I think my plan when I go back with this is to try to make it even happier. So this is really nice and clean burning. Here's where I start getting some black carbon. And then if we go to the top of the head, also nice and clean around that edge. And this was like, I want to say I went to 34 degrees of timing. I don't know if I ever tried any more than that. I feel like that was all I was comfortable with. And yeah, I mean, it just getting them cleaned back up, the valve work done and stuff. The head gasket was just that blue Fel-Pro. I think that's a 38 thousandths compressed gasket. So what I may do is try to source some gaskets that's a little bit thinner and try to tighten that area up some. Because if that's more efficient of a burn through here and here. So remember, if I show you this, we go right back over and look here. This piston matches up to it pretty nicely, you know. So kudos to them for doing that. I believe these are Icons. But just wanted to show you that before we keep going. I'm going to pop that other head off, give it a look over. I got a little bit of rustiness around this valve here. I'm not super concerned. I'm going to get these checked out. The engine hasn't ran in a good little while. If you see that white chalkiness, that's from, I was running 100 octane in this engine, just with some 2-cycle oil. It probably could have lived fine on pump gas like 93, but the 100 octane is kind of what it's kind of what we always ran. So I'm going to pop this head off and give it a look. I'll show you, kind of like we mentioned before, that line had a nice happy clean burn going on here, here, and around. It kind of starts fading here. It's pretty similar on that piston. I know it's kind of hard to see because it's down in the hole, but as the inside, so the inner parts of those two are a little bit darker. I don't know what to equate that to, but we've mentioned before, like piston rock. Let me watch that very top edge of this piston when I push down at the bottom. So here's my thumbs. I'm just going to push down. So now I have effectively rocked that piston in that bore, and hanging up from there, I can catch my fingernail on that. That dude is probably, let me get my straight edge, out of the bore right there. Yes, it is. So I'm anxious to see what the ring gaps are on this engine. I know it had a these are the rings that came with it. I sent the rings and pistons to my machine shop to have it bored. I'd like to know what the gap is in them. I don't remember checking it 10 years ago or whenever it was. I probably didn't used to check that stuff. I probably just used to just throw it together. So anxious to see what that is, but it'll probably have to be next time because I'm out of time for the day. I appreciate y'all watching. Hopefully we can all learn from this, and when it goes back together, we'll have a good 408 again. So I'll catch you next time.